So when we came to implement this, it was advantageous that we came to System Dynamics because we were trying to find a solution to a problem we had, i.e. how do we start to try and map that across the system? And I think because we'd already recognised the problem as a system, it made it easier to get that engagement from that. We have a series of boards set up already across the ICS where it allows us to talk to all our providers in one go and talk to them about their needs and their requirements and seek their commitment. We did that, and unanimously all the providers were supportive of the piece of work that we did. We decided that we didn't want to ask for a dedicated team to do this because we recognise the challenges all the providers already have with winter pressures and with COVID. Instead, we asked people to commit some time towards that and allow it to become part of their day-to-day activity. To give us the best opportunity to manage this properly, we looked at identifying one analyst from each of our acute providers, which had the biggest BI teams, one from our commissioners, one from the ICS, and another from our public health team. And that gave us a really global picture of analysts and different skills and different training and different knowledge. We worked really closely with NHSI and the whole system to get that initial training in place. And then what we did is we asked the analysts to start collaborating on the review and development of the first models. We found that the product was simple and easy to use, and that gave the analysts quite a lot of confidence to start exploring on their own. Once they had that confidence, we looked at seeking one specialty for each analyst to own and maintain. They became a bit of a champion for System Dynamics for them. They became the linchpin between the clinical and operational teams and the analytical teams, and that allowed them to really own and get into that work. We're hoping that we will pull together a single team eventually once we've completed the pilot, where we will have permanent staff doing this, because we really see this as a solution for strategic decision making. But at the moment, we just have those individual providers working as a collaborative team. And it fits with our ICS strategy anyway. We are looking to try and pull all our BI teams together in a single team. And this is really helping to start those conversations, allowing them to grow and allowing people to work together in a slightly different way.
Had all the names that were signed up to the pilot. So that was a coup from the James Paget, the deputy coup at Norfolk and Norwich, deputy coup at QE, and then also the head of Insight with myself. And then we used to meet weekly with the NHS E&I and the whole system partnership. We made a very early decision about which specialties and which timelines we wanted to focus on. And then as we developed and brought the specialties online, we then brought the specialty reps into the work. We made sure we had a named BI from each organisation, so the 3 acutes, the CCG and public health, so that we actually made sure it was broad enough that there was experience and expertise made into each of the organisations. And then we named each of the BI leads a specialty to the work that we were doing. So one went to orthopaedics, one went to eye care, one went to dermatology, and then they each had a backup. And then we also made sure that they had weekly meetings to educate themselves and to help build them as a team, because they would never have met before. Teams were really brilliant for this because it meant we got a lot of relationship building whilst we went along. We then had each specialty working separately, but we came together once a week just to see how each one was going, which one had challenges or successes, so they could learn from each other. And we also made sure that we acknowledged when things didn't go right or when timelines were being delayed or there were challenges with things, and thought about other ways of making it work. For example, in our first group, we didn't include the right primary care people. So we went out thinking we were working with the CCGs, but actually there's a different cohort of people we should have brought in. So we learned. So when we did the second group, we thought differently about how we could do it. And we didn't just have whole big group workshops. We also tried it with smaller workshops to see if that worked, and just tried different things. Because it was a pilot, we had the freedom to be a little bit more flexible about how we did things. And I think one of the good things we did was after about 2 or 3 weeks, we actually then had a secret from the NHSEI weekly meeting where we just had the coups having the ability to just be able to talk and ask the silly questions that maybe they wouldn't have wanted to say in a more public setting. So we had a local group as well as a more formal group. So I think they were the big things that we kind of did to really kind of keep the flow going and get things moving.
So the implementation for this project across the system was we met and discussed as a system what we wanted, and we met with Vanessa and her team to discuss what we wanted. We agreed a particular specialty to look at that had implications not only for acute services but also community services, and that specialty that we chose as our pilot was trauma orthopaedics. Because of the MSK pathways through community, etc. So we contacted through Vanessa's team. We sent out invites to therapy services within primary care, the CCG, therapists, clinicians, nurses across all 3 acute trusts, and we brought them together for a couple of mapping events where we discussed what needed to go into the model and how it would work, and we broke into sort of little groups to do that and facilitated that piece of work. We also trained a number of people within our business informatics teams to be able to take on this modelling once we'd gone through the pilot, and we are currently working with ophthalmology and I think it's dermatology to do the next sort of system modelling.
So I think the key thing with a system model is to make sure that you've got buy-in from as many of the stakeholders as possible. When you're working on a system model, that means that you need to broaden your horizons slightly from what we're used to working with in terms of an acute. We have a habit to get siloed and think, oh, this is our hospital trust and this is what we're doing. But system dynamics gives us that ability to spread out and think about the wider picture and look at the impacts of what we're doing on the system as a whole. Hence the name System Dynamics. It meant that we had to sit down with those stakeholders and have conversations with them and understand the pathway more than we normally would in our day-to-day work of just looking at the numbers. Although we think about them in terms of patients, it meant that we had to look at how those patients move through the pathways, what could possibly happen to them at each stage, and where those moves would happen and what the impacts of those moves on other areas could be. So it is very helpful to have those conversations with third parties that we wouldn't normally meet. As well as helping with the system dynamics model, it helps with networking. So we now have contacts in the community and in other trusts that we wouldn't have had before we'd started this piece of work, which has helped in other areas as well.